Hello guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Peter and I am a UX mentor. Out of YouTube, I've coached a large number of students into their UX journey and careers, and I decided to bring some of my UX knowledge and tips online for you all. So today we are going to be talking about UX specializations, and without wasting any time, we're going to dive right deep. Bear in mind that UX is not just one particular field, and contrary to the misconception that a lot of people have, UX is a broad field and it has smaller branches which you can decide to specialize in as you further your career into UX. Notwithstanding, you can also be a complete UX designer that focuses on everything, but then you can specialize if you want to, or if you think you are very strongly inclined to a particular direction in the UX field, or maybe you're very or exceptionally talented there, you can choose to specialize. So in another video, I'll be giving you my advice on whether you should specialize or not in UX, and also I'll tell you the advantages as well as the disadvantages of both specialization and being a generalist in UX. But for today, I'm going to talk about the different UX branches and specializations. So I hope you follow up. So firstly, I'm going to start with the interaction designer. So who is an interaction designer? An interaction designer is a designer that focuses on designing the experience of a product and how it functions. So they try as much as possible to understand the user flow or the path that a user takes to complete a task on an app or a website or any other digital platform you can think of. So in essence, an interaction designer checks out every step-by-step process in the app or website and makes sure that the user journey to completing tasks there are as easy as possible. So as an interaction designer, you have to ask yourself some questions, or you have to design following a certain pattern. You need to ask yourself questions like, what should happen if a user taps on this button? So you have to take that into account. Probably you have to consider adding a feedback after a button is pressed to ensure that the user knows it has been pressed. Stuff like that enhances the user experience, so you have to take that into consideration. Next, you have to ask, how do we make this action easier for users to complete? As an interaction designer, this should be your sole focus. Take note of that. This should be your sole focus, making actions within the app or website as easy as possible to complete. So that should be your main focus. So lastly, you need to ask, how are the design elements like the buttons, pictures and other things within the website being presented? You have to present the design elements in a way that is very easy for the users to understand. Like your buttons and placement of the different design elements shouldn't bring confusion to the user. If a user presses a particular button, then that button should take the user exactly to where the user expects to go, because you know, when users are interacting with products, digital products, and they come on something like a website or an app, when they see buttons, they press particular buttons in expectations for those buttons to take them to other pages. For example, you can come to a gaming website and see the download button. You expect that when you click that button, then the game should start downloading. You don't expect to click that button and maybe go to another website that doesn't have the download option. You see, websites like that, those are examples of bad user experiences, websites with bad user experiences. So as a user interaction designer, as an interaction designer, you have to take note of that. Such things shouldn't be found on your website or apps that you work on. So in summary, you have to bear in mind that the interaction designer focuses less on how the product looks, but rather on how to make the product as easy as possible to navigate, and the product has to be easy to interact with. So the interaction designer doesn't really focus on how the product looks, on whether it's visually appealing or not, even though they take that into consideration, but that's not their main focus. The main focus is to make the website or the application as easy as possible to use. So there you have it. That's an interaction designer. Next, we are going to move to the visual designer. So who is a visual designer? A visual designer is a designer that focuses on how a product or technology looks. So So in this case, unlike the last type of designer we treated, the visual designer isn't really concerned about how easy the product is to use. Their main goal is to make it as visually appealing as possible. That's the main goal of the visual designer. Visual designers are responsible for designing logos, illustrations, icons, etc. So the visual designer also makes decisions on stuff like the font color, the font size, placement of fonts in a way that will make the product look as beautiful as possible. Take note of that. So visual designers, they focus on the layouts of each page or maybe each screen, and make sure all the design elements fit together in a visually appealing way, like I earlier said. So as a visual designer, you have to focus on questions like, that's why you're designing, you have to focus on questions like, what kind of visual style should the icons have in order to fit the product's branding? Because every digital product has a brand they are representing in the real world. So you have to make sure the icons match that product's brand. Which color, which font should we use for the buttons, or this button or that button, which color should we use, which font should we put inside the button, stuff like that. You have to consider that, because remember, the goal of a visual designer is to delight the users with designs that inspire, engage and excite them. So that's that for the visual designer. Next, we are going to move to the motion designer. So who is a motion designer? A motion designer thinks about what it feels like for a user to move through a product from start to finish or between pages. So they think about how to create smooth transition between pages of an app or of a website. Motion designers create stuff like animations or visual effects to bring their design ideas to life or enforce what the product is trying to bring out. So a motion designer, while designing, you need to answer questions like that. So you need to design following these questions. You need to ask yourself these questions while designing. How should an app transition between pages? So all these gymnastic kind of interesting transitions you see in apps and stuff, those are all the work of a motion designer. All those exciting transitions you see when you're flipping from one page to the other on an app or on a website, that's the work of a motion designer. They also ask questions like, should we show the connection between these particular actions? Like, they can use specific kind of movements in an app to show you that one action is related or is a continuation of a previous action. And last but not the least, they can also ask questions like, what's an engaging animation that will help to tell our story or portray our message in a way that will be very easy for the user to grasp. So all these questions are questions that motion designer will bear in mind. So you have to put those questions at the forefront while you're designing apps or working as a motion designer. So in essence, the motion designer focuses on design elements that move rather than the traditional static stationary designs. So you won't be wrong if you said motion designers contribute to bringing a form of modernity to the design web, because in the past, or most of these old websites and apps, they were very static, pages were very static. But with the rise in motion designers today, you have beautiful transitions between pages. So they have actually helped to bring a sense of modernity to product design. So you wouldn't be wrong if you said that. So we've come to the end of this video, and the next video we are going to be completing the list of UX specialists, which will include virtual reality designers, UX researchers, UX writers, UX program managers, UX engineers and conversation designers. So take care, guys.